Hi everyone, it's Vicky here, and today I'll share the card I made for my mom for the upcoming Mother's Day. For my card, I'll be using this sunflower from this stamp set by Penny Black, which is called Sunny Hello, as well as this die, which is called Petals, and it's also by Penny Black. As you can see, I've used already some scrap paper and die cut this background die, and now I'll just poke all the little pieces out. Today's card is quite complicated and not easily replicated. I really don't mind since this is a card that I'm making specially for my mom and I don't plan to mass produce. I am planning to put this die cut on top of my standard card, but first I'll go ahead and ink it up. So I'm using a piece of post-it tape at the back just to keep it clear, and now I'll go ahead and use my blending tool and my distress ink and cover up the whole card front. I'm using peacock feathers and I'm not really paying attention in blending the color smoothly. I just want to put the color in. Since I'll be covering up the whole card front with my die cut, you will only be able to see small parts of this color peeking out from the little holes. It really doesn't matter if it's smooth or not. Now I'll peel off my post-it tape and my card front is ready. I'll put that aside for now and I'll go ahead and start stamping my flower. So I'm using this white piece of cardstock and I'll be stamping the sunflower using a brown ink. I decided to use brown ink instead of black because I want the center of my flower to be brown, obviously. Just because I want to create a dimensional flower, I'll be stamping the flower many times. So as you can see, I've stamped the flower 3 times and one more time to get the center of the flower. I'll show you now the flower and you can see that there are actually 3 layers of petals. And the plan is to create a dimensional flower with 3 different layers. So I'll be coloring my flower using my sponge dabbers as well as my distress ink. For the center of my flower, I'm using a vintage photo because I want it to be brown. And now I'll go ahead and stamp the layers of my flower. I'll start with the middle one and I'm using spiced marmalade. And then I'll go ahead and use mustard seed. And also note that I'm working on the middle layer and not on the top one. So I'm just blending the colors together now. Blending with distress inks and a finger dabber is very easy. I believe that distress ink really does the work for you. And when I'm happy with the blending, I'll use my scissors and cut around the flower. But I'll only pay attention on cutting out the middle layer of the petals. You see how I don't care about the top layer of the petals and I just cut through them. And now that my middle layer is ready, I'll go ahead and work on the bottom layer. And just because these petals are at the bottom, they should be darker. So I'm using only a spiced marmalade and I'm trying to saturate the color as much as I can. And I won't be using any yellow color here. And now I'll use my scissors and cut it out. I'm only paying attention on the bottom layer now. So I'll cut through the other petals as if they didn't exist. And finally, I'll be coloring the top layer. This should be the lighter one, so I'm using mostly my yellow color here. And then I'll just blend in just a bit of orange. And although I wasn't paying attention on blending the colors perfectly in the bottom layers, now I'm paying a lot of attention, so you see they are very smooth, and that's because it's at the top and everyone will be able to see it. And once I'm happy with the blending, I'll use my scissors and cut it out. Again, I'm paying attention only on the layer that I'm working on, and that's the top one, so I'm cutting out all the other petals. And now that everything is ready, this is how it's going to look, although I'm going to pop them up using foam squares at the back. But first I'm going to use my sponge dabber again and go all around the edges because I want to get rid of that white edge. I've used my yellow ink for the top and the middle layer and my orange ink to go around the edges on my bottom layer. Now I'll use some tape adhesive at the back of the center of my flower and stick it at the top layer, and now I'll just use foam squares at the back and stick one on top of the other. I think my dimensional flower turned out very pretty. Now I've trimmed down my die cut piece of paper just a bit so it leaves a border, and I'll use very small foam squares at the back. I've used a ton of these small little foam squares at the back just to make sure that my piece stays flat. But here is a tip: if you have to fight with all these little pieces and peel them out, you don't really have to do it all. I'll just go around and peel off whatever is at the edges and just a few at the center. I hope this makes sense. But just a few being sticky at the back will be enough to keep it in place, and the rest will be there just to keep the distance from my cardstock. So now my die cut lays flat on my card, and I love how you can see the gorgeous color at the background peeking out from the little holes. And now it's time to stick my flower, and I'm just using again foam squares. I really don't mind about the bulk and the dimension on this card since I'll be giving the card to my mom myself. I'll be stamping a sentiment on the inside of the card, and I've chosen a lovely sentiment from this penny black stamp set, which is called Kind Words, and it has the perfect sentiment for Mom's Day. And if you don't know what that is, it's a very handy tool that helps you stamp again and again at the same spot. And the idea here is to use 3 different ink pads to stamp this sentiment, just because I want to make it match with the colors at the front of my card. So I've used Sunshine, Orange Peel, and Audrey Blue from my Simon Says Stamp ink pads. And I'll be masking out parts of the sentiment using post-it notes and using different inks every time. And as always, you can find a list below the video on my YouTube channel as well as on my blog with all the supplies that I'm using, including the different ink colors as well as the stamps and all the little tools that I'm using. And as I told you at the beginning, this is a complicated card, so it doesn't end here. I've used 2 pieces of scrap paper, and I'm going to cut out the word enjoy. And this is a lovely set of dies by Penny Black, which is called Hooray, I believe. I'm covering my scrap white cardstock with vintage photo, which will match the center of my flower. And again, I'm going to cover up a second piece of scrap paper using the spiced marmalade, which will also match the color of my flower. Now I'm going to die cut the word enjoy twice, once from this orange paper and another time from the brown one. And once I'm finished with my die cutting, I'll be having the word enjoy twice, once from orange and once from brown. And now I'll be using my glue pen at the back and stick the brown on top of my card. This will work as my shading for the orange wording. And as I'm sticking the word enjoy on top of my card, I'm making sure that the letter J is not over a hole, since I'll be sticking that little dot at the top, or I wouldn't have a place to stick the dot. And now I'll use my glue pen at the back of the orange enjoy and then stick it on top of the brown one, but making sure that I'm sticking it offset, a little bit offset, so it looks like it has shading at the back. And here is how the card looks now. I think it's so pretty. And although it's very complicated and time-consuming, I think that every mom wants a time-consuming and very special card. So now, just to add some little finishing touches, I'm using 3 of my pearls at the center of my flower and some Wink of Stella glitter pen over the letters. I'll also use my clear glitter pen to add some shimmer at the flower, but I'll just add the shimmer only where those dark lines are. I'm just following the lines of my stamp. Finally, I'm going to write my personal message at the inside of my card. There is enough white space left just below the sentiment. And that pretty much finishes the card for today. I hope you had fun and got inspired to create a special card for your mom. Thank you all for watching.